Hey everyone, today we're discussing the story behind the powers of DBD. We'll be looking at how they came to be, and any possible meaning behind them. Trapper's power is simply bear traps that he made himself on the Macmillan estate, with use of the foundry and the ironworks. One feature that is somewhat interesting is the red tints within the metal, which is likely blood from his workers. The ironworks lore mentions that some workers were tossed into large vats, so it's likely a combination of metal and the workers, which is kind of grim. Wraith's power is his ability to cloak with use of his bell, becoming nearly invisible. The bell itself is his father's, crafted back in his home in Nigeria before his death. The bell has some key focus in his lore, where he's tasked to ring it to warn his village of invaders, but he fails to. The magic of the bell comes from the entity, imbued with its ancient powers. The Wraith seemingly has the ability to adjust the bell's effects with use of symbols painted onto it. Billy's power, we can infer from his perk Tinkerer, is a custom-built chainsaw, likely from parts around Coldwind Farm. The real power really though isn't so much the chainsaw, but the superhuman speed he is said to be imbued with when using it. This is more of a mystery, and could be the entity's doing. It could also be a result of Billy spending much of his life slaughtering the farm animals, building his strength, and allowing him to reach these speeds. Nurse's power is named Spencer's Last Breath. Patrick Spencer was a warden at Crotus Pren Asylum, and this breath is quite literally his last breath drawn before death at the hands of Sally. Sally has captured this breath somehow, likely with the entity's help, and now is able to channel the energy from it to Blink, which is actually her briefly entering another plane within the entity's realm, the spirit world, which is what Wraith also enters when he cloaks. Oddly though, it is not what Spirit enters when she phases. Doing the blinks causes great pain. She powers her blinks further with other last breaths drawn, as well as different items and trinkets from the patients of Crotus Pren. Huntress's power is Hatchets. These hatchets are more than likely crafted by herself, and the ability to throw them like this was something she learnt from her mother as a child. After her mother's passing, she had at least 20 years alone where she honed these skills, raiding nearby villages, decimating squadrons of soldiers, and becoming the apex predator of Red Forest. Maya's power is unclear in its origin. The power description makes it out to simply be darkness inside him that drives him, enabling his power. It's paired with the quote from Dr. Loomis about him being purely and simply evil. There's many theories surrounding this, and options given by different sequels, like him being possessed by a demon. Really though, I think the concept of him simply embodying evil and darkness is where the power comes from, which is more confusing and conceptual, but I do think that's the best answer. Really, I don't think there was ever meant to be an explanation. Hag's power is from both the hexes and the entity. In Lisa's dying moments when she was trapped within a village, she drew a symbol into the mud and summoned the entity. The entity appears to have granted her power from both it and the hexes, with her hand becoming a catalyst for the magic, able to utilize the hexes and granting her the power of duplicating herself when drawing her triangular symbol into the ground. Doctor's power is arguably his mind, but in a much more literal way, it's the electricity. This power was entirely the entity's doing, and was gifted to Herman almost as a reward it seems. The entity granted him an infinite source of electroconvulsive power within his heart that affects the minds of those he shocks. He does however seem to channel and alter this spark with use of his knowledge and research. Bubba's power is literally just a chainsaw. I think this may be the most basic. It's just his chainsaw. I don't think he's even modified it or anything. It was a gift given to him on his birthday, which is a fact you might not know. Freddy's power is also a bit more conceptual and unclear on how he really got it. It seems to stem from the fear surrounding him though, originally bringing him back as the kids he abused remembered him, which manifested him in a sense. The memory of him keeps him tethered to the real world. That and his anger seem to have granted him these dream demon abilities. Within the realm they have been modified by the entity quite substantially, said to have been nerfed in some ways and enhanced in others. Pig's power is her reverse bear traps. These traps are the creation of Jigsaw, and were used on Amanda herself. She managed to successfully escape from them, however, and joined Jigsaw as a result. She likely uses these in somewhat of a symbolic way. She's also still devoted to Jigsaw, and believes the realm is part of the plan, and so utilizes his tools still. However, she does appear to tinker with them, altering the fairness of the outcome, as she is known to do. Clown's power is his two concoctions, the Afterpiece Tonic and the Afterpiece Antidote. The Tonic is a concoction that combines anesthetics and muscle relaxants to create a formula that dulls and confuses someone. The Antidote is quite straightforward, and likely just a solution that cures the effects of the tonic, as seen in game. What is in it is unclear, but Clown has likely inhaled or drank a lot of it, as he isn't affected at all by the tonic. Spirit has the power to phase, where she enters an ethereal plane. Her power appears to be entity given, after the two of them make a deal when she is on the brink of death, an exchange of service for revenge. Rin's ability to use her powers is sourced from the rage of her ancestors. Interestingly, this somewhat means that Kazan, or the Oni, is in part a source of her power. The entity is a being which feeds on emotion, so it makes sense that when it gives powers, it manifests them from powerful emotion. Legion draw their power in a similar way. The emotion or the described thrill of freedom is what allows them to enter their powered state, where they can inflict deep wound, and run and vault, and is likely why they have the somewhat ridiculous stun effect after doing so. It's not just because they're pathetic and tired, it's because they're likely channeling emotion empowered by the entity, which I imagine is quite exhausting. Plague's power appears to literally just be the plague, which she got infected with, and destroyed much of Babylon. I kind of have to think though that the entity has done its thing of neutering it in some ways, and enhancing it in others, because otherwise Adiris would likely be permanently on the brink of death, which probably wouldn't be too efficient. Ghostface's power doesn't actually seem to be supernatural in any form, but simply his perception and ability to study and decide on the best way to strike. We do know the floaty bits of his outfit are the entity's doing, but otherwise it appears the origin of his power is simply himself and his years of stalking. Demogorgon gets its power simply as being a creature of the Upside Down. The Shred is a physical ability that it can do, like a human can jump. The ability to create portals is basically just Demo tearing the fabric of reality and bridging the two worlds. It's unclear why it can do this. We know the Demogorgons are somewhat magically connected to 11 and Vecna, so potentially they have an ability to telekinetically open these portals. Oni is similar to Spirit. The way he explodes with power is a result of the entity weaponizing his emotions. Most significantly, the emotion surrounding his desire to destroy those he views as lesser than him. Basically, it's his rage become manifest as a physical power. Deathslinger's power is his custom spear rifle named the Redeemer. It was a creation of Caleb himself and adjusted over the years, originally created when he was much younger and made a railway spike gun for his employer Henry Bayshaw. After Bayshaw betrayed him and stole the invention, he utilized his rail spike invention to inform the Redeemer's creation after his release from Hellshire Penitentiary. Executioner's power is another kind of conceptual one. The trails are said to be created by literally his big knife splitting the ground, and the barbed wire trails that come out of that split are stated to be an infernal construct, essentially a construction of Silent Hill or some kind of underworld, I believe. His powers and his overall being, after all, are the creation of the tortured mind of James Sunderland, who manifested Pyramid Head as a means to punish himself, with it representing his guilt over killing his wife, Mary. Blight's power is a creation of his own, the Pustular Serum. The serum has mutated his body, but also enhanced his strength and speed. In his lore, Talbot attempted to create a serum like this when out of the realm, and failed, instead causing many deaths. However, with use of the Blight plant found in the realm, he manages to create a working serum that enhances his physicality, however at the cost of his mind and body. Twins' power is one of the most unique powers. Their power is entirely entity given, and is simply their ability for Victor to split from the body of Charlotte, where they were before conjoined. Victor died prior to Charlotte's entrance to the realm, and so Victor is completely a creation of the entity, which is likely what allows this separation to happen. Trickster's power is a bit like Ghostface's, and actually seems to just be skill and practice, which I actually find a little far-fetched, because he throws blades at pretty superhuman speeds, so I tend to think there is some entity tinkering going on here, but it's certainly not stated to be the case, which is interesting. Nemesis is an umbrella-created bioweapon, implanted with the Alpha parasite. His physical appearance is from mutations of the T-virus, which is what spawns his tentacle, which is technically his power in the realm. His tentacle has the ability to transfer the T-virus through small spikes that inject. It seems by the description that this power is purely scientific and biological. No entity magic here. Cenobite's power is his ability to open portals within the realm, bridging it to his homeworld of the Labyrinth where the Cenobites live. That's essentially all it is him tearing portals into the realm and firing chains out of them. The inclusion of the box and the way it acts appears to be entity adjusted, with how it spawns in the trials. Artist's power is entirely entity given. Much like some of the other emotion manifest characters, Carmina's crows come from the darkness within her, built up throughout her traumatic life, which the entity has subsequently used to allow her to physically manifest her darkness in the form of her ink crows. Crows played a major role in her lore, and represented hope and darkness at different points. Ultimately though, they remind her of the most tragic and traumatic event of her life, when her hands and tongue were severed, and her friends were killed by a murder of crows. Sadako's powers are passed down from her psychic mother. She has the psychic power of Nensha, also known as thoughtography, and is what she uses to later create her tape. Her powers are so strong she has the ability to literally just make people drop dead, happening typically when she's angry. After her mother passes away, Sadako is tossed down the well after being hit on the head. She dies down there, but remains in spirit for decades, as an onryo. Eventually a cabin is built over the well and she awakes. Whilst down there she curses a tape, which will kill those who view it within 7 days. This all translates to her powers in the realm, just with some adjustments likely made after she made an agreement with the entity, which explains the lack of 7 days, but alternate presence of 7 bars to fill. Dredge is quite literally dark thoughts manifested. A bit like some others, it's more conceptual and doesn't exactly have a direct explanation. It's a creature that was summoned and created by the repressed dark thoughts of the Garden of Joy community, eventually wiping them out and consuming them all into its mass. Its power therefore resides in dark thoughts. These thoughts empower it, and it reaches its peak power during nightfalls, when they are harder to avoid. Wesker is also a bioweapon, part of Project W, which utilized the progenitor virus, which is millions of years old. Project W had the goal of creating an advanced human race. After Wesker moves on from Umbrella though, still with the goal of bringing an advanced race of humans to the world, he creates the Ouroboros virus. Wesker later also implanted himself with the Ouroboros virus, which in the DBD canon he does just before he is taken into the realm. In the trials he infects people by gripping them with his Ouroboros tendril, which is essentially the power. Knight's power is vague in its origin. This probably means it's entity given. Tahos and his boys were taken during a slaughter of a town who were rising up to defeat them. It seems during this fight the entity protects him too. It's possible even it was deceiving him and he actually did die, because in the realm he certainly doesn't look healthy. In fact, Tahos and his boys all look undead. Either way, the power is likely entity given, allowing Tahos to use his blade to summon each of his companions at will. Maybe as the chapter name suggests, they are forged by the fog. There is a small section of lore that maybe suggests the power is manifested from his desire for more bloodshed, a bit like the Oni. Skull Merchant is another fairly simple case. She just made her power. Its design is inspired by her father's dark mangas. The drones themselves are made from technology she developed, as well as likely the skulls of her victims, which were often CEOs of companies that she would do quite literal hostile takeovers on. Singularity's powers primarily come from the ancient crystal Hux dug up on the planet of Devaka. The crystal gave Hux sentience and greater intelligence, allowing him to evolve beyond the capacity of his human creators. His powers of biopods and his ability to slipstream and teleport is a sci-fi creation, and is explained as Hux bending the rules of physics. So yeah, seemingly his power is entirely scientific and beyond current human understanding. Alright, well, that's gonna do it. Let me know if there's something you want to add, or anything I missed, down below. Thanks, and goodbye. Bye.